I have to get right into this. I actually forgot to set some food to cook, but that just means I have to scramble when this is over. I'm going to start Ever Pencil. Going to work with this is a 2H and a 4B, and we have a black wing, which sort of serves the purpose of both. So we might just try this. Not using a huge piece of paper. You'll notice that it has like uneven edge. I don't trim it with like a paper cutter. I use a pocket knife. I fold and then use a pocket knife because I kind of like that rough edge, particularly for something like nature or bird. I think it looks kind of nice. So we're going to stick with this. Normally I would tape the edges, but I'm going to move it around a little bit. I do have a board. However, to do that, I would use gum tape, which is a little better to keep things kind of set instead of masking tape. But I'm not going to do that. I do have a mister, and this kind of gives a nice primed area, because if I go dry when I paint, it ends up looking like dry bush. Anyway, I can get right into the drawing. Hope everything's good. Hope you're all good. You're enjoying the music. And yeah, let's get to it. Silence the phone. We are drawing. And our barn swallow, let's see, we're going to just lay out the major areas right now. Our layout. Let's see. There we go. And that is where our barn swallow is going to sit. Right in 1, 2, this nice shape here, right down to the center. Really nice shape. Really perfect for a portrait and a nice composition. I'm already happy with that. We'll get right in here and just make sure. This is going to change a little bit, but I wanted to really do my best and make sure that it stays within that shape. I really like this shape already. Again, this was actually, so when I use references, this reference was completely different. I cropped it and I did some color correction to make it what I wanted. Again, we drew barn swallows yesterday. They were actually martins, but I worked with the martin and added and took away the attributes that would make it more like a barn swallow. For example, the tail and the feathers or the wings are much longer. So that's something I did. This, we found some nice images of barn swallows. There were some videos, but I stuck to, I think I had at least half a dozen, I would say, today at lunchtime, half a dozen images of barn swallows. Again, cropping them, kind of thinking, looking what I wanted to do. Color-wise, there's actually, so this is the pose I want, but there's coloring from another image that I'm probably going to use a little more of, and we'll talk about that in a little bit once we get our drawing down. Let's try to move through this quickly. And I am going over overlapping lines here. We have our this is going to change several times probably. Now, right there, there we go. Looking at that nice shoulder, or I should say it's really the, believe it or not, that's actually the wrist, because birds have their hands where their wrist is, the hand is basically one finger, and that one finger, and you'll see right at that point that's right below the neck that we're talking about, that one finger is where the primary comes. It's one long finger, I should say. And I'm correcting. I have my preferred eraser. I don't have my brush, but we'll get that in a little bit. I'm telling you, this is a gauntlet. I almost called this stream a barn burner, but I thought that was a little strong. That was a little strong. To call this a barn burner, it didn't seem appropriate. All right, it's actually okay. Even though this isn't correct, it's actually, there's a little space here, a little shadow here that forms. That's actually quite good. I like that. One. And just correcting, I want to stay right where just get that overall shape really nice, really nice. I want to get a very nice shape here going. We have our, let's see, and I don't want to venture too far outside this shape and the composition because it is quite nice. And correct this a lot. Make sure the drawing's really good, really tight, because once we start painting, can't do much about it. So really need to make sure that this looks good. Really need to make sure this looks good. So I will do, this is a different approach than what I usually do, or what I did yesterday especially. Excuse me. What I did yesterday with, and in general with a fountain pen and watercolor pencil. Just go straight. Cutting, I'm not going to do exactly what you see there. Let's get sometimes a lot of times when I'm starting out, I won't look at my paper. I'll pay more attention to the shape, because sometimes if I stare too much at my paper, I actually miss things. And when you, believe it or not, when you're not looking at the subject, or actually, excuse me, at your paper, you're paying more attention. Because when you look and put down the pencil, and you look and put down the pencil, you're drawing from memory and you're not really paying attention to what. Doing something a little different today. I've been doing portraits, but I am taking the risk and taking the jump. And we are going to try a watercolor portrait. It does. And you're going to see. You're going to watch me struggle. We'll talk about that. I have no shame in I'm not ashamed of saying, you know, hey, I don't know how this is, how that's going. This didn't turn out the way I wanted, or struggle. You know, not excuses, but I like to be honest. You know, sometimes it just doesn't work out, even the best of us. And I am not the best of us. But I like to have fun, and it's It's watercolor. We were talking about that yesterday. People were so intimidated by watercolor, and it's the hardest medium. Good, Ali. Is it nice by where you are right now? We have an amazing, amazing day here in the New York City area. My stream is going pretty good. I have to say, this has been such a nice. I mean, it's 6 weeks. I've kept a schedule. I look pretty much have the same setup as I do with my classes. I just finished a class right now. I assist two phenomenal artists. They're both watercolor artists and are water media artists, and they do phenomenal work. And I help them with their students and help them do things that they don't want to do. And they shouldn't do. It helps them so this way they can spend more time helping the students. So that's why you see this. This is my smock from work. I didn't take it off, and since I'm going to paint in watercolor, I figured let's be safe. Let's be safe, because I end up using it as a rag. The watercolor will drip down. I have like all this. Oh my goodness! If I showed you the palette, it's a mess. It's a huge palette. I have a smaller palette, so all the paint runs down, and that's why you see all this thing is just filled with color. And that's why I started putting stickers on it, because the board started warping. And when the paint runs down, I'll grab the shirt, and you'll see there's, and I'll place it right at the edge of the table, since we live in an apartment and there's carpeting right underneath. I'm losing my deposit. We can't move from here. We can never move from here, because not only will we lose our deposit, I'm afraid that they may actually ask us to pay for watercolor damages. Like, what is all this paint? What's this paint doing? All my bad watercolor paintings, this one class we paint so much. We paint like 30 paintings in one class. So obviously I'm not going to keep all of them. Live in an apartment, right? And so they go into the recycling, the really bad ones. And I always wonder what, because it's a huge dumpster. It's a do I stream daily? I stream 3 days a week. I stream on Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and I've been adjusting the time. So yeah, we have, since we live in an apartment complex, we all throw our recycling in the same spot. And I wonder sometimes if you're like, wow, this person stinks. They're awful. What they don't understand is I'm throwing away the worst ones. So yeah, I do. They are terrible. Of course they are. That's the worst ones. You might think, wow, does this person not erase at all? And I usually wait till the last minute to erase. Because then what ends up happening is I erase, and then I draw, and then I don't like it, and then I erase, and I just keep going back and forth doing that. But it is time to probably erase a little bit. Perfect. This is okay. That's okay. There we go. That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I'm going to clean this up because I know it's starting to look confusing to everyone. But I swear, it does make sense. Thank you, Ali. Thank you for the follow. Okay. I'm going to clean this up. You're going to notice that I'm going to erase areas that look awful. I don't use a kneaded eraser. If anyone knows most teachers say, oh, use a kneaded eraser. They don't damage the paper. However, I disagree with that. These gum erasers, all of that you see there is the eraser. It's not the paper, it's the eraser. And it's soft. It gets rid of the lines in the graphite pretty easily. Use a little brush to sweep it away, but the paper goes undamaged. What I don't like about kneaded erasers, if you use it like you would a normal eraser, they're sticky and they end up like pulling and sticking and smudging. If you roll it, then it's okay because it tones down the lines. So it's okay to like tone down lines, but not so much actual erasing. So I use the gum eraser and the plastic eraser. Oh, that head was a little small. It's not going to look exactly like the reference because I know that reference is up there. I'm actually cheating and I'm using 2 other references. Yeah, if you don't, some people really don't like, I remember instructors, they said definitely don't get the gum eraser. But with the plastic erasers, what they refer to it when they talk about it, it's the coating that has like that plasticky, whatever coating, which is meant to protect the eraser. But once you get the eraser, and I learned this from some online atelier, and it's a Russian academic instructor, and he used a pink pearl, the worst of the worst in terms of what instructors tell you. But then I learned the trick that he slices it on an angle, and what's inside, once you get past that coating, that's what erases, and it actually erases really well without damaging the paper. The kneaded erasers are good, but they're good to, when you don't want to get rid of a line completely, that's what kneaded erasers are good for. All right, let me shut up. Shush a little while and get this done. People want to see this get done. Shush and draw. That is not going there. Let's open up that space where the beak is supposed to go. Their beaks are interesting because they go further in and go right underneath the eye, which most beaks don't. On like sparrows, the beak of a sparrow, for example, it'll end right where you see that dark line coming. That's where they'll end. But with the swallows, they go further down. And I actually have to read about that. I don't know if it's to eat like whatever bugs it is they eat or why they have such a interesting, it's not really a short bill. All right. Yeah, kneaded erasers, like everything else, you just have to learn what the tool is used for. Kneaded erasers are, erasers in general, they're really drawing tools. A little higher right there. A little higher right there. Constantly adjusting. Not exactly Control Z, but as close as we can get to Control Z. Because then the eye is going to look absolutely enormous. And even though this is holding the eye within it, because that's not the whole eye, there's also the eye ring. Here we go. That looks a lot better. Looking better. I could even maybe bring that out a little higher. Or just make the eye a little smaller, which is maybe what I'm going to do. I'll adjust this and make it a little smaller, because then it looks a little too sweet looking. Oh, that's what I wanted to talk about. I went to the bookstore today, and I usually like to go there to the cafe, and do some thinking. Gets me out of, I work from home, so it gets me out of here. And it's a nice place to think, like the library. Library, not library. Library. And I saw this book of Japanese prints of birds. Oh, talk about like influence, huge influence. And of course they had Hokusai, the tidal wave, but man, I love those drawings. There we go. That's so much better. That is so much better. There we go. Much better. Refining this a lot now because I won't be able to do it later. Once that watercolor goes down, forget it. There we go. Perfect. The expensive paper, I cut it in half. Remember I said, oh, I have all this. Yeah, I looked today and I was like, oh wow, I don't have as much as I thought I did. So I cut it in half. I cut another piece. So who knows? The stream may be until 11 o'clock. If I mess this one up, I have 2 other pieces of paper to go ahead and try. I think this looks okay. It's not exactly the greatest, but I think it's okay. This really comes out. And again, we have a lot of feathers around the eye. We're talking about like anatomy sort of thing. There's so many feathers around the eye. And that's going to show the kind of the perspective here. So many feathers around the eye, really. Yes, it is. It's the expensive paper. Okay, that's pretty good. All right. Leave that there. And I'm creating these sections. I know it looks like I'm making essentially a coloring book, but it is a plan here. You really have to plan this out when it comes to watercolor. You have to have a plan, because once watercolor, even when you have like a huge plan, really well laid out plan, water does what it wants. And that can be phenomenal. All those surprises, not happy accidents, but kind of surprises, they can be really great, or they can be very painful. And sometimes, depending on how it dries, you could put something down and think, oh no, that was too dark. And then it ends up being too light the way it dries. Right. Here's that rust color where it ends. Right there. Good. Good. All right. I know it seems like I'm making all these little, like, why are you doing all these little, okay, it's done. Move on. But again, if I don't get this right, because I'm going to, after this, I'm going to use a fountain pen with waterproof ink, a nice dark brown waterproof ink. That goes down, then it's, I'm going to remove the lines. Then I'll use a kneaded eraser just to knock down the pencil lines a little bit. So we're here, have that nice shoulder there. The wrist, actually, I keep saying it's the shoulder. It is not the shoulder, it is the wrist of the bird. So there's some lines there, good. We have these feathers that come down. Those are coverts. Not covert action as in like Mission Impossible, but coverts as in protective covering of that area. See right here, that's the wrist. You have the finger, this little feather that's hiding underneath here. If you see it, I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to show it right now. that feather right here that's getting overlapped. There's a feather right here. That's my favorite feather. It's called the alula, and that's mostly why it's my favorite feather. It's because I like saying the name alula. And that is the feather that comes off the wrist. That's the wrist, and then birds have this one finger. It's a very long finger, and that's all they have. And that finger is where the longest feather of the wing comes out of. And that's where that comes out of. I just wanted an excuse to say alula. So that's the alula. Let's say it again. Alula. Because I'm probably not going to be able to say it again. It's the last time. Right there. There it is, hiding. And then we have the beginning of that primary feather. Doop. I guarantee, even though it seems like I'm going a little overboard with the work, I guarantee there's going to be a point where I start to cry because I didn't do enough. I forgot something. That'll be sad, but I'll get over it. I'll live. There we go. Nice. I am happy here. Rid of that one. These are all the neck feathers. It's like not a beard really. This is kind of more the beard, but this covers and goes right up to, you know, if we look at the rib cage, the sternum here, that's where that is. And then from here, you see that there's like all these feathers. They kind of vary in cover. It's a whole nother feather group. They look differently. They're shaped differently. They kind of weave together. Okay. How are we looking? We have our shadow here. Just make sure that that is nice and defined. This big shadow area there. Big shadow area here. And all these feathers coming in. I don't need to do all that in detail. This is the shadow here. Dark area. We have all our dark areas here. I'll talk about the colors that I'm going to use a little later. And that little spot there, you can see the center of, I'm gonna do it right here. Boop. 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 When in doubt, make little sound effects when you're drawing. It helps. It's better than the eraser. It's better than Control Z. Make little sound effects. Make little sound effects right there. Okay. All right, how are we doing? Pretty good. These are the lures over here. So I have to, let's see. I just know that this is here. It doesn't show, but I know that that's there. Brother Wolf, I have a feeling that my bot is having its way with you. Don't. Give the line some character. It's waterproof, so normally in some of the classes I work, they I wanted noodles. I'm a brat. I've been wanting noodles. I want one of those. I want noodles. I want noodles that have with a nice boiled egg in them. You know, 5-minute egg. You know, they put the egg in there and still got a little yolk in there. Oh, that's what I wanted. A nice bowl of ramen noodles. To here. So this is the balance between drawing and the watercolor. So I'm not following completely what I did with the pencil, you know, all that pain and suffering to get the pencil lines really kind of nice and perfect. All happens so I can go ahead and do these nice lines. They're going to disappear anyway because of the watercolor. Probably not going to see them that much, but it'll help me later on if I, you know, start getting lost, which is for sure a possibility. You know, once you get into the later washes. I don't know if you can hear this, but it's like scratching right up in this paper. Has so much texture. It's a rough paper. These are actually mistakes, but I like the way they look. Okay, we're giving a little bit more character. There's our Alula. Get to say it a second time. The Alula. There it is. Okay. And then there they are. Just adding a few details here, but not too many. The whole thing is not to draw it, just like with people, you don't try not to draw every single hair. Same thing with birds. You draw, you separate the groups, but not, you know, not use every single feather. Like these are almost like hairs. Some things I missed here, and that is more or less it. Okay. There we go. Lighten it up a little more. I'm going to see if I missed anything, especially around the eye. But I think that's okay. There it is. Okay, so I want to just make sure I keep this here. That's the highlight of the eye. And then there's another little highlight here. I don't know if I'm going to get to this. This is very small. But we'll call that another highlight. And then that's it. See, that looks a little more bird-like. I don't know if that's the name. And cheese burrito later. I love spicy burritos. I like the green spice. No way. I love the spice. We have, oh my goodness, we have a lot of Mexican restaurants here, all different kinds. I know it's awful to say Qdoba, but uh, it is because it was really quick. It's right behind us. We actually have some really fantastic uh, Mexican places. We have a halal Mexican restaurant that has a falafel burrito. Oh, that is so good. So good. And then we have the traditional ones, and then we have Mexican restaurants that are from different parts of Mexico. We are so spoiled with food here. And then, of course, because we're right outside of New York City, we have a ton of pizzerias. It's really hard to be healthy in this area. You know, yeah, poor thing, right? Poor thing, boo-hoo. Poor thing. Oh. Oh, so you make them at home? No. No. I think the one thing, at least with my family, about Thanksgiving, I've noticed people don't eat turkey. I love turkey. Turkey's good, but for some reason, a lot of people don't like turkey in my family. They like the baked ham with the pineapple on top. I don't like that too much. Oh, okay. No, no, Jinx. You have to have turkey. I'm sorry. That's where I'm going to side with your friends. You have to have turkey. Yes, there's a lot of good places on the internet. Who was talking about food the other day? I think the siblings, the Canadian artists, crafters, Moco Loco. Always want to say Moco Loco. I don't think it's Moco Loco, but I think that's the name. All right. I am procrastinating. I am delaying the inevitable. The watercolor has to come out. Animal portraits. That's, yeah. I'm sorry, rock, paper, water, but Thursday's going to be bird portraits, probably moving forward. We're sticking with what we know. At least, kind of, sort of what we know. So I cleaned my watercolor palette for the occasion. I have many watercolor palettes, but I cleaned my watercolor palette. If you weren't here yesterday, yes, Moco Loco sibling crafters. They're awesome people. They're so nice. I'm pretty sure they're Canadian. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you right now, this was actually really bad. I know it doesn't look pristine, but this was really bad. This was really bad yesterday. It was bad. I mean, you could see the other palettes I have, and you'd be like, oh my goodness. I do clean them before I use them, but then once it's done, I'm like, all right, I'll clean it. I'll clean it later, and I never do. This looked a lot worse yesterday. And in fact, I'm just gonna pick up some water here. I'll mist it. So what I do is, I mean, some of these you'll see they're a little drier and some stay nice and wet. I go really the extra length to keep my watercolor as moist as possible. So I'm using the mister. It's like a little salon. You can get these at art stores or Amazon. They're worth it because I use it for my plants in the winter when it's very dry in here. Okay. So I'm going to take that, and then what I'll do is I close it to make sure it gets, you know, whatever's dry and hard. I'll leave it in here just for like a minute or so as I set up everything else. And we'll do that. I'm just gonna grab some, I do have my big tub of water. I am going to go ahead. We already had an accident here. Okay. This is why you don't put a watercolor palette on an angle. What are we using here? Apple juice is part of the process. And the apple juice is here, and the big tub of water is there, so I don't put my brush in the apple juice, which is why it's also sealed. Pro tip, this is the most important thing I could ever share with anyone, which is whatever you're going to drink, tap, have it on, if you're a righty, whatever hand you use to paint, keep it on the opposite side, and your water stays on whatever your dominant hand is away. Because I've done it. I've done it once. Honestly, what I've done, which is worse, is I painting and I forgot that I had paint on my hands, and I stuck my finger to like rub my eye because it was itching. That resulted in about a week looking out of one eye, but I kept streaming or coming in. And then there's the whole map, like how you're going to drive, in terms of where the color is going to drive. We're driving here, here, and here. That's our blue. And then here, which I forgot that line there. That's okay. Here, right? This is more complex. This is one shape. I'm going to stop there. And then I'm going to come in here, down, and anything that drips over here is totally fine. That's kind of dirty. So I'm going to start with the blue. And the thing about this paper is I have to go darker because it dries pretty light, and you'll see. It dries quite light. I'm going to start to blue this. I'm hesitating because I'm super nervous about this, so I'm super nervous. And I don't care if I overlap now. It's not that it's messy, but come right over. Back. Down. Over. Coming down. Here you go. And now back down. Over. Let it drip down. That's okay at this point. I'm okay with that. Just not on the carpet. And you'll see I could pick up some of it anyway. Okay. While it's still wet, I can pick up, I don't need to pick up too much, but I could pick up a little bit. Okay, that's okay. I'll let that go. That's gonna blend with the rust brown anyway. Go back in. We want go into the beak here. And this is going to give it some depth. Nice big brush. No details at the moment. There we go. I don't want that. This can drip. There's going to be sepia and it's going to be black anyway underneath here. So I'm okay if that drips and it mixes with but you see already, look how light that is. Look how light that is. This is going to need many layers to get the tone that we want. The other problem is that these brushes hold so much water that it's another thing that I have to think about, even though I see like my puddle of water here. Okay, I'm going to come out with a smaller brush, a smaller quill brush, because we're going to smaller areas here. Have our base. I'm going to mix this actually with a little more of that gold. Frida does need an umbrella. Frida does need an umbrella. I mean, all right, so I am going to do a couple things here. I'm going to move from the gold to the burnt sienna and back. So over here, I know there's going to be, and that's okay if I go over it, a little gold there. I know there's going to be a little gold here. That bright yellow, that's okay, that goes down. I'm okay with that. Maybe a little less, but there. Just drinks it up. There we go. And a little more here. Let it go down. Let it go down. Let it go down. Okay. It looks super, super bright, right? I'm going to see how light it dries. So we have our... It's okay if it blends. That went too far. That's okay because that's dark. That's okay because that's going to be a dark. I know it's like, oh my goodness. That's a disaster. Yeah, I know. It looks like a disaster. But I swear to you, the disaster is really yet to come. The disaster is yet to come. You want to talk about disaster. Okay. And then I always do, because it's wet, lift it up. That's okay. Lift it up. That's okay. What else do I want to lift it up? I'm going to leave that there because this is going to be black, so it's okay if it has a variety of color. In fact, there's an area here, that white strip that I don't like, so I'm going to let that bleed a little bit. Be careful. And let that bleed a little bit here. Can't add too much water because you'll get a bloom there. But that's okay. A little more gold. A little more gold here. Okay, there. Again. It may look, those may look better than what this is going to turn out to be. Those may end up looking better. Don't show them. Don't share them with me. I'll be really upset. There we go. All right. Just gonna add some water, let it drip down, let all this drip down. All right, and that is most of it for now. That's most of it for now. Let me add some more of this gold here. Add more of that. And then this rust color here. Can I let it? It's okay if it drips down. It is okay if it drips down. It's okay. Because I'm gonna use some thicker color. No, it's okay. I'm not offended by it. I'm not offended by it at all. All right, so maybe I will add a little bit of that green here. Should I add a little bit of the green here? Maybe when it's done, I'll add a thick layer of the green. And now that, oh my goodness, that fountain pen line is going to save my life. It is going to save my life. There you go. Just doing a little like wet and wet technique. to give it some variety. Okay. Yeah. They probably looked almost as bad as mine does right now. Poor Frida. Poor Frida. I mean, what did Frida do to anybody? Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, you see how it's already turning super light? Look at that. It's already going really, really light. I am going to use, I have the excuse of using the heat gun. Look at it. And it says it too, just in case you don't know it. It says it right there. Heat gun. All right. I'm not going to cover the entire area. Just carefully. And then I'm going to use a softer brush here. Use a brush. It's damp. And then just along the edges there, so it doesn't have like a hard edge to it. And this next layer here is when things get a little challenging. So you may notice that I kind of go dark for a moment. Just a little bit there. And then I'm going to grab that blue that I talked about with the marine blue. And the smaller brush, come in and let it mix with this burnt sienna. Don't paint over the whole thing. Grab let that bleed in. Same thing here. Let it just bleed down a little bit. Let this bleed down a little bit. Just nice and soft so there's not like this hard line. Okay. Again over here. Right there. No hard edges. No coloring book thing. Let it bleed on this side. Okay. Then come in again with the red, and believe it or not, I'm going to take some red here. So they blend together, the red and the blue together to help it start forming the natural color of that bill. coming down here. Again, not everything. Not everything. And even still looks so bright. So bright. It's okay. Let it bleed down. Let this bleed down here. Let that bleed down. Okay. And then this is going to want to soften that up right there. And let this drip down. Let that drip down. See a little bit, just a little darker colors here. All right, this is the scary stage. This is the ugly stage. This is the ugly stage. This is the ugly stage. Now, while it's wet, I'll add a little bit of a darker. Just a little bit, going a little darker. Start to add that Payne's gray. And I'll add that while it's wet. It's wet. Let that bleed in. Okay. Let that bleed in. Start to touch. Try to leave that little highlight there. Up here. And then I'm going to take a little bit of water. Not too much, be really, really careful. Let that bleed. There we go. Ooh, my goodness, that's stressful. That is so stressful. That was so stressful. Going again. doing this while it's wet. A little bit by bit, little by little, and using a lot of wet and wet techniques, letting the colors mix right there. There. See, once it dries, now it doesn't want to do anything, so I'll probably have to cover that up. I'll have to cover that up somehow. You have to do these things when it's wet. See, it's not going to travel with the water. It's not going to travel with the water very well. That's pretty much a hard edge. There is a little bit. I don't know if we can see that. I don't know if we could see that right now. I'm going to start to tone these down. I'm probably going to add like a soft white. I'll probably have to use like, well, we'll see. We'll see. We will see. I'm going to let this dry. See how it dries. Some areas there that should be darker, definitely. This is also dry. This is also darker. And that is going to be darker right there. This line. And then I'm going to mix, actually, this is when I'm going to bring in sepia and add it right there for like, to get some variety there in the blacks. It's going on the fridge. This one might be going on the fridge. Let's fingers crossed. It's going on the fridge. That's gonna be the running joke. I'm gonna start using that in my like the descriptions. Will it go on the fridge? Live stream. Will it go on the fridge? Careful here. Just want to bring that. Get some now we need to define a little bit over here. Let's define a little bit here. Just a little bit. Let that bleed down. That's actually wrong. I just did there with this one. Pick up that a little bit. Okay. There goes the marching band. There goes the marching band. Let's bleed down. Honestly, the marching band's pretty good, so it would be nice if you could hear it. Let's have these go across this way. Okay. Wow, this is so much work. This is so much work. All right, so while this is drying, I am going to take the risk and I'm going to put that like kind of yellow olive green because I like to live dangerously. So I can get that olive green. Let's see. I'm not going to put any water in there whatsoever, just like on the edges. I'm going to wet the edges down a little bit. Okay. And over here, this I don't care about. That can bleed down, but I'm just going to soften that edge. And let's see what we can do with this olive green. Yeah, see, almost a little, maybe a little gold. Okay. It's bleeding up a little bit. There. Okay. Again, not every area, but all right. There's some light there. There's some light here. Just like little touches of feather effects. You know? Okay. Nice and soft. Oh, thank you very much. Chuck the Tuna. How are you, Chuck the Tuna? How are you, Chuck the Tuna? Thank you very much. I'm not going to tell you what kind of bird it is, so whatever whatever you want to imagine. No, this is a barn swallow. I still have another area of darks to do and maybe just like some opacity over here, and I'll kind of sort of be done. I don't want to overcook it. There's a thing called overcooking, and it's something that is worse than overcooking a steak. It is worse than overcooking a steak. I'll tell you that right now. I'm good. I am good. I'm psyched because in not too long from now, I am going to be ordering noodles. So I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited to be ordering noodles. Let's see. Yeah. Small things. Yes, there is really nothing worse than overcooking a steak. Noodles are definitely a win. There we go. Okay. Just going to do really quick down here. Okay. Let's get just a little bit here. Just trying to drop in a little bit of looked a lot different. It was there was other stuff going on, trees and whatever, and I like really worked out that reference and I used brighter colors from another reference. So I do that a lot. I mix different references and that way it becomes mine and I get what I want. So I'm not just stuck with the reference. I can use colors from another one, if that makes sense. But when people ask, I'm like, yeah, I use reference. I use it. I don't use a reference. I use a lot of reference. I use a lot of reference. Why not? We have it. Video's the best reference. If you can hear me over the heat gun, video's the best reference. Because you can get a lot of screen captures. You could like go frame by frame. And then you could draw a lot of you can make a lot of different drawings out of it and choose what you want, but then you also learn about the subject much better. So, for example, I don't know, I know birds better than I know other animals. Like I drew a buffalo the other day, or I started drawing a buffalo. I don't know buffaloes well. I don't know goats well. So I use video, and the video helps a lot to really learn. So I'll pause it, I'll stop it, I'll go backwards, I'll slow it down, and I make all these ugly sketches. But those ugly sketches help a lot. Thank you. So I actually don't, I work with, so I work in an atelier with a couple of different artists, and two of them are really phenomenal watercolor artists. I generally avoid watercolor outside of classes because I don't feel very confident in it. But I'm toying with the idea of doing watercolor portraits on Thursdays and doing like the entire bird on Wednesday and then do the group of birds on Mondays as kind of like a landscape in a sketchbook. So I usually work in sketchbooks. This is I thought, especially since it's watercolor, this is a heavy watercolor paper. And yeah, so I'm doing, let's see, are you dry? You're dry. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Landscapes generally, or landscape proportion on Mondays, and then the whole bird on Wednesdays, and the portrait on Thursday. Oh, okay. Cool. Cool. All right, I'm going to work on the wings here a little bit because I don't like the way they came out, or I just think that they need a little more work. I am considering using a different brush, which is called a cat's tongue, because I think that will give me a little bit more of the shape I want. I could always just use the side of the brush too, which I might do because the cat's tongue is in a different location. So I'm lazy. And I want to, I'm lazy and I'm eager to work on this. So let's see, I'm going to thicken up the blue here. So we'll do the area above. And I'm using the texture of the paper to kind of give it a little bit more. Let's see. Maybe a little too bright blue, but I think I wanted a little bit more of a faded blue. Give that edge. Just wanted to define that edge a little bit. Without drawing every feather. And I'll soften it with, just soften it a little bit. So I don't want it to look like acrylic. Contrast it with the dark. It's way too light. Come in with the dark. And that will be with a different brush. It's a little too harsh. All right. Let's not overcook it. Let's not overcook it. Those lines are way too pronounced. There we go. Let it bleed. Same thing over here. There. There is the Alula right there, which is my favorite. All right. So that I don't want to, again, I don't want to overcook it. All right. I'll let this bleed a little bit in there because to make the eye a little look wet. There we go. And I will give it a small, tiny highlight there.